It was a night of elegance, diplomacy, and quiet rivalry beneath the glittering chandeliers of Windsor Castle. As the United States met the British royals in a spectacle of grandeur, all eyes turned to one woman, Princess Catherine. Draped in a gown that shimmered like starlight, she didn't just attend a state banquet. She became the story. Even among presidents, queens, and first ladies, she stood like a vision from another era, a living fairy tale in motion. But beyond the pearls and politics, what truly unfolded that night told a deeper tale, one of grace, power, and symbolism only royalty can carry. Before we unravel the untold magic behind this unforgettable evening, from Melania Trump as bold-fashioned to Queen Camilla as quiet choices, take a second to hit like, subscribe, and share this story with fellow royal fans. Trust me, you'll want to stay till the end, because what happened behind those gilded Windsor doors might just change how you see modern royalty forever. Windsor Castle. That name alone carries centuries of whispered legends, royal footsteps, and timeless echoes through its marble halls. But that night, that extraordinary evening, something felt different. The chandeliers seemed to glow a little warmer. The air was thick with anticipation, as if even history itself paused to take a breath. It wasn't just another royal event. It was the moment when the United Kingdom and the United States stood shoulder to shoulder, celebrating diplomacy under the watchful gaze of the world. And yet, amid presidents, queens, and dignitaries, one figure quietly began to steal the story before the night even began: Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Outside the gates, cameras flashed like lightning. Carriages rolled through the courtyard, their wheels echoing softly against the cobblestones. Inside, the royal guard stood in perfect symmetry, their red coats glowing under torchlight, living symbols of tradition. Every click of a heel, every rustle of silk carried the weight of centuries. Reporters whispered, "It feels like something magical's about to happen." And they weren't wrong. As the first guests arrived, the state banquet hall gleamed in golden light. Rows of crystal glasses lined the tables, polished so perfectly they reflected the royal crests engraved above. The dinner plates shimmered with gold trim, and the soft hum of violins floated through the air, elegant, delicate, almost unreal. It was as if the castle itself wanted to remind everyone, this is Britain, where time bends for royalty. Then, the atmosphere shifted. The U.S. delegation arrived. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump stepped out of their motorcade and were greeted by Queen Camilla and King Charles III. The flashbulbs erupted. Every camera tried to capture that one handshake, that one smile that might define the night. There was diplomacy in every glance, the art of saying everything without a single word. But even then, whispers began to spread among the attendees. Have you seen her yet? They say Catherine's look tonight will stop hearts. And behind the scenes, Princess Catherine was preparing. Calm, poised, every movement deliberate. Her team adjusted the final touches of her gown, the lace falling like moonlight. She didn't rush. She never did, because she knew elegance isn't worn, it's carried. Back inside the hall, Melania's bright yellow gown caught the light. It was bold, vivid, a statement of confidence. Across the room, Queen Camilla chose something far quieter, almost subdued. And somewhere between them, in that delicate space between diplomacy and spectacle, the Princess of Wales was about to enter.
But before she did, Windsor fell silent. The doors opened, and for a fleeting moment, every sound, every whisper, every camera click disappeared. Through those doors walked a woman who embodied everything the world wanted royalty to be: poise, warmth, mystery. The cape of her gown trailed behind her like a whisper of old fairy tales. The diamonds at her ears glimmered like captured stars. And yet, her presence wasn't about wealth. It was about composure. It was about history repeating itself in the most graceful way. Because every generation has its moment, and that night, it was hers. The contrast between the Americans' bold modernity and Britain's quiet tradition painted a powerful picture. It wasn't competition. It was choreography. Every gown, every gesture, told a story of two worlds meeting in gold and glass. Catherine smiled softly, her gaze calm yet knowing. The cameras loved her. The people loved her more. And somewhere in that hole, an unspoken truth began to form. Royalty isn't about crowns anymore. It's about presence, and Catherine's presence filled the room like music. As the first toast was raised, the whole shimmered with applause. The king spoke of friendship and unity, and glasses chimed like soft bells. But eyes drifted again and again toward the princess, who seemed almost sculpted from grace itself. Even foreign guests whispered to each other, "Now that is what a modern princess looks like." Outside, Windsor's ancient tower stood under a silver moon. The night air carried faint notes of laughter, the hum of distant conversation. And as the lights glowed against the stone walls, it was hard not to feel that the old castle itself, after all these centuries, was smiling too. Because every once in a while, the past meets the present, and something beautiful happens. That night, the world didn't just witness a state visit, it witnessed a fairy tale come alive. When Melania Trump stepped out of the state car that night, the air seemed to shift. For a brief moment, the chatter hushed, the camera flashes slowed, and a wave of golden light rippled across Windsor's courtyard. Her gown, a vivid yellow with a lilac belt, glowed under the floodlights like a captured sunrise. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't safe. It was deliberate. Some called it daring. Others, defiant. But everyone agreed on one thing. Melania Trump had entered Windsor like she owned her moment. The choice of color was no accident. In royal etiquette, yellow speaks of optimism and power. In diplomacy, it's the color of confidence, the kind you wear when you know every gaze in the room will land on you. Perhaps that was her quiet message. America stands tall and bright. The gown, designed by Carolina Herrera, flowed like liquid silk. The lilac accent softened its strength, while the fitted waist and flowing pleats mirrored the careful balance Melania always maintained, elegance with an edge. Her emerald earrings glimmered beneath her hair, and her pumps, the signature Manolo Blahniks, matched perfectly in tone and poise. But there was something deeper here. This wasn't just fashion, it was theater. At a state banquet, every detail is political. Every color, every jewel, every gesture tells a story. And as the cameras panned from Melania to Queen Camilla, the contrast couldn't have been sharper. Camilla, dressed in familiar silhouette of soft blue, stood as the embodiment of royal restraint. Her gown was modest, elegant, but unmistakably safe. She'd chosen the Belgian sapphire tiara, a piece steeped in royal heritage, paired with Mrs. Grenville's diamond necklace, jewels that whispered a tradition, not transformation. Between the two women stood a fascinating tableau, one radiating bold American confidence, the other representing quiet British continuity. And somewhere behind them, the Princess of Wales waited, calm, watching, letting both energies unfold before stepping into her own light. Many royal watchers noticed how Camilla's choices echoed her previous appearances. Same shapes, similar tones, even the same tiara she'd worn months before. Critics murmured that the Queen's ensembles lacked spark. But those who understood the deeper rhythm of the monarchy saw a different message. Camilla wasn't trying to shine. She was holding space, letting the younger generation and the guest of honor take center stage. It was diplomacy in motion. And perhaps that quiet wisdom is what keeps the royal machine moving so smoothly after all these years. Meanwhile, Melania's choice divided opinion. Some fashion editors adored the bold color blocking, the yellow and lilac combination, the emerald jewelry, calling it modern and fearless. Others felt it clashed with the event's tone. But one thing is certain, she knew exactly what she was doing. Melania has always been a master of controlled silence. She speaks little, but dresses loudly. And that night, her gown spoke volumes about individuality, visibility, and power. In a hall filled with centuries of British subtlety, she made sure America's First Lady couldn't be missed. Yet, amid the dazzle, there lingered a quiet truth, one that would soon become clear. Because as breathtaking as Melania's entrance was, it was still a prelude. Something, or rather, someone, was about to eclipse it entirely. As dinner was served, guests mingled under the painted ceilings of St. George's Hall. Conversation flowed, champagne sparkled, and laughter danced through the air. The cameras followed the American delegation closely, while royal correspondents whispered about who might sit beside the Princess of Wales. And then it happened. The great doors at the far end of the hall opened once more. A ripple of hush rolled through the crowd. Even Melania's vibrant gown seemed to fade into the golden light. Catherine entered. At that moment, the contrast between American statement and British elegance reached its poetic peak. Melania had dazzled with color, but Catherine glowed with calm. The world had just witnessed two very different expressions of femininity and power, one loud, one quiet, both commanding in their own ways. That subtle tension, the kind only fashion and diplomacy can create, hung gently in the air all evening. It wasn't rivalry in the harsh sense. It was artistry, each woman representing her nation's soul, each reminding the other and the world that presence, not just fabric, defines a legacy. By the time dessert was served, every guest in the hall knew the night would be remembered, not for its politics, but for its contrasts. Yellow and white, America and Britain, power and poise, and the best was yet to come. The whole grew still. Even the orchestra paused as she entered. Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales, radiant in white and silver. It wasn't the kind of beauty that screamed for attention. It was the kind that made silence its audience. Her gown, designed by Fairytale Lepley, shimmered softly like moonlight woven into silk. The lace cape fell behind her shoulders with quiet majesty, each movement fluid, deliberate, timeless. Beneath the chandeliers of Windsor Castle, she looked less like a guest, and more like the spirit of the castle itself come to life. Gasps rippled through the hall. Some guests turned to look at her, then at one another, as if to silently confirm, yes, she really is that breathtaking. She greeted the king, the queen, and the president with her signature warmth, that calm, composed grace that defines her. And then, as she took her seat beside Donald Trump, 1,000 camera shutters whispered across the room. The fairy tale was in motion. But what made this moment unforgettable wasn't just the gown or the diamonds. It was a story that shimmered behind her eyes. A woman who, in just over a decade, transformed from a shy university student into a global icon of elegance, not through noise, but through stillness. For Catherine, every gesture mattered. The subtle tilt of her head, the soft wave of her hand. Even the smallest smile carried the weight of a legacy, not inherited, but earned. Her choice of white was symbolic. White, the color of diplomacy, peace, renewal. In that moment, she wasn't merely representing the crown. She was representing the continuity of monarchy itself, the bridge between centuries-old tradition and a modern, empathetic world. Observers called her the roll-eye fairytale princess, and perhaps, for once, the world wasn't exaggerating. Because at night, beneath the chandeliers of Windsor, she reminded everyone that royalty isn't about glitter, it's about grace. Not power, but presence. Across the table, Melania Trump glanced her way. Two women, from two vastly different worlds, united by the same stage, diplomacy wrapped in silk and diamonds. And yet, Catherine's calm aura seemed to steady the entire room. She didn't outshine anyone. She outlasted them, effortlessly. The cameras captured every detail. The delicate tiara nestled in her hair, the faint sparkle of ruby earrings, the slight motion of her gown's train as she moved. But no lens could fully capture the emotion that filled that hall, a sense of witnessing something timeless. The evening unfolded in quiet splendor. Laughter returned, glasses clinked, and yet, even as the night carried on, it felt as though the story had already been written. Windsor Castle had its new legend. Not of queens or wars, but of a woman who turned grace into strength. Later, as the guests departed and the chandeliers dimmed, Catherine's silhouette lingered in memory, the kind of image that stays with you long after the lights fade. Like the final page of a storybook, closed gently but never forgotten. And as the castle fell quiet again, the moonlight bathed the ancient stones in silver, the same silver that glowed from her gown. History, it seemed, had smiled that night. Because sometimes a fairy tale doesn't need dragons or magic. Sometimes it's just a woman walking through history with quiet dignity, turning one evening into a legend, and that, dear viewers, was a night Windsor became a fairy tale. A night where diplomacy met destiny, and Princess Catherine reminded the world that true power speaks softly. But what do you think? Was this Catherine's most iconic moment yet? Or simply another chapter in her growing legend? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you felt the magic tonight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who still believes in elegance, grace, and the quiet kind of strength that defines a true princess. Because sometimes history doesn't just happen, it glows. And on that night, under Windsor's golden light, it was glowing through her,